This is Adi, and you're listening to the Summer of Bitcoin experience. In this episode, we talk to Shashwat Vangani from India, who is now a full time Bitcoin Core contributor. Shashwat participated in the inaugural edition of Summer of Bitcoin back in 2021 when he was still in university. He graduated in 2022 and became a full time Bitcoin Core contributor, sponsored by Superlunar. Shashwat is working on redesigning the Bitcoin Core GUI, making it easy for anyone to run a node with a user friendly and slick user interface. We discuss his journey from Summer of Bitcoin to contributing to Bitcoin full time, his personal journey into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and advice for young professionals on getting started with Bitcoin. Sounds exciting? Let's hear it from Shashwat himself. Hope you enjoy it.
To-
Hey Shashwat, welcome to the Summer of Bitcoin experience.
Thank you very much, Adi, for inviting me here. And first of all, I should congratulate you for such a great presentation and inspiring us all to start on a great note with this podcast.
Thank you. So Shashwat, let's start with a bit of your introduction. Tell us where you're from and what are you up to today?
Sure. So I come from a small city named as Banswara from Rajasthan, and from there I did my childhood studies and went to study. I did my studies and went to study in Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, to do my bachelor's in engineering physics. And post that, I'm sitting here in Bangalore.
All right. So let's talk about your journey into Bitcoin. Like when was the first time you heard about it, all the way up to what do you think about it now, and why is it like worth paying attention to?
Yes. So first time I heard about Bitcoin was in around 2017, 2018 when I was in my 11th, 12th senior secondary. So at the time I heard about about it in newspaper and stuff, like something known as Bitcoin is there in the world. Like there was some kind of news about Bitcoin in newspaper, but it was not obviously properly explained as with every news. And so at the time, the impression that I got with the Bitcoin was that it's something of a mystery, something of a mysterious thing. It's not something like a usual thing that you talk about, but there is something about it that is worth exploring. But at the time, obviously, I was in my 11th, 12th, so was more focused with my academics, obviously, studies. So at that time, I was not able to pay focus on this. But then, post that, when I was in college in my third year, during the internship period, I again heard about Bitcoin. At the time, when I was searching for different internship opportunity, so the which could align with my alignment of what I think about what should I work on. Because the thing is that from even from childhood, I don't want to work on things that everybody else is working on. I don't want to do thing everybody else is doing. So even when all of my friends were trying to apply for internship in say Microsoft or Adobe or Google, I was thinking like if I gonna apply them in them, I'm gonna betray myself in the sense that I just want to do something that's not done frequently by my peers. And that's why I waited, and then I heard about Bitcoin, Summer of Bitcoin through the notice board of our college, and there I thought that again the same memory tickled upon, which gave me the experience that there's something mysterious, and finally I'm getting the opportunity to explore it. And that's why I thought that it's worth it. It's worth my time. And then I applied for it and did good with my internship process, the proposal process, and then finally I got the internship opportunity.
Awesome. So before we kind of talk about your specific Summer of Bitcoin project and your experience during the internship, let's just focus on Bitcoin, right? So you started off by telling that this was this mysterious thing that was going on in some part of the world, and finally you got a chance to basically peek into it through the summer. At the end of the summer, like what was it that changed your impression about Bitcoin? What did you learn? And why do you think how did it go from being a mysterious thing to actually an important thing that now you're working full time on it?
Yes. So before the internship process, even before when I started to study technically about what Bitcoin is or what blockchain is in general, I had just a sense of that it's just a black box and a kind of technology that's too complicated to understand for me. But once I started to like follow a proper path to understand what the basics of the thing is, what blockchain is, what Bitcoin is, what exactly happens with Bitcoin, I came to understand there are very simple, like there are like say not numerous, say some number of parts, some moving parts with Bitcoin that are so elegantly attached with each other, if you put it that way, that just they just the simplicity of the whole structure, right? And that solves such a big problem of money itself. It just kind of at the time blown my mind. So first it was like I was curious about the project, what Bitcoin is, and then after my 2 months of internship, I was just excited about what I'm working on, and how what the level of simplicity and the level of elegance that present with Bitcoin's moving parts is such great thing. And then post that, I came to understand, like at that time I was just curious about the technology only, and that's why I continued my work on it. Because at the time we were selecting all my friends were selecting on something that they can continue their work upon. So I continued my work upon at that time with Bitcoin because of the only reason of because I was excited with the technology, like how it's moving. I was not kind of like remotely aware of the revolutionary aspect it brings with the money itself, the level of changes it can bring. And then post that, like we can go about that in like later in the podcast. But something happened during the like very recently. Then I got my orange pill movement. So after that, I now realize that what I'm working on is not just a say a very interesting or a very experimental technology. It's something that can change the world, is changing the world, and I'm helping it do that.
So you mentioned the technology aspect of it, and that's actually a very good point. And before we go into the whole societal impact that it can have, I think the technology itself, as you said, is unlike anything else that has come before, right? So a lot of people think, okay, Bitcoin is based on blockchain, and blockchain is this data structure like a linked list, and that's the big breakthrough. Whereas, and so we can build other types of blockchains and we can do things, but in doing so, they are essentially just looking at just one piece of that data structure and disregarding everything else that makes that data structure important, right? That makes Bitcoin what it is.
Mm.
And I think that's a key distinction why, we at Summer of Bitcoin, they focused on Bitcoin and not blockchain. Because Bitcoin is not just blockchain. Like blockchain is simply just linked list, and linked list have been around for, I don't know, 1970s, right? So that's not a new breakthrough. The breakthrough is in how that linked list data structure uh, gets works, alongside proof of work, which is in itself a big breakthrough.
Mm.
And then, in terms of the cryptography that it uses, and the game theory that comes about, and then the problem that it chooses to solve, which is money itself. I think all of those aspects are what make Bitcoin so special, and that is what has stood the test of time as far as Bitcoin's security and reliability is concerned. Whereas every other thing, right, every other application, quote unquote application of blockchain has just faltered or basically gone nowhere.
Yes, true. So that was one of the point I wanted to mention. Like the interesting thing with Bitcoin is that the protocol that it implements encourage people to be honest. Like being dishonest in the system would be automatically discouraged because you would get some kind of penalty. So for example, in real life we have to enforce in on the law wise, if I say, we have to enforce that people don't steal from each other. If they do so, we are going to punish them externally with a third person, and that involves the involvement of a trust. Like I studied about that recently in a book. So so that involves creating a third party that's gonna keep check on those 1 2 party, that they are not gonna break the protocol. But what if say we kind of form a protocol in which if somebody's gonna even try to steal, they are automatically gonna automatically be punished. So for example, like at that time I was thinking that how is it possible, and then the author gave an example. Like he told me that he has 2 sons. So like like he asked them to share their food between each other. Okay, now if he's gonna share the food for them, then what would happen, that they need a third trusted party, their father, to do the equal sharing between them, and that can create some kind of risk of, say, favoritism, not on the father side but on the child side, that they would think that child one is more favorable or child two is more favorable, and that could create chaos. But what if we are going to change the approach of doing the splitting? Instead of he splitting for them, he just does what he can do is that he can say the child one to make equal halves, and child two would select which half he's going to take. Now what would happen if the child one is gonna do the cheating and not gonna split it like equally or say properly? Then the child two can take just the more quantity one, the food. So what would happen? So through the protocol, the change of protocol, automatically the cheaters is getting punished. And same happens with Bitcoin itself. So in the real world, cheating is like not cheating is enforced. In Bitcoin, cheating is automatically punished by protocol. So there is no third party involved. That's such. I was like, boom, at that time. And the fact that I recently read about this, and I'm working on this stuff for so long, and I recently studied about them, I was like, poof, such beauty.
Yeah, I think that's a very great example. And it's at the core of how the protocol functions and how the game theory actually works, where the protocol forces all of the participants, right? Whether it's the miners or the nodes or somebody who is just using Bitcoin or even the developers, it forces all of these different stakeholders to act honestly uh, and meritocratically, because otherwise you will be ousted out of the system. So I think that's what makes it tick. That's what makes it work, where we do not need to rely on trusted third parties for enforcing the protocol of money. And so that gets rid of any single entity, whether it's an individual or whether it's a group of individuals or some corporation or some government, gets rid of all of those centralized parties and gives power, as far as the Bitcoin protocol is concerned, to individual participants, which is what makes it decentralized. I think that aspect, or that definition of decentralization is something which is very hard to wrap your head around. But once you get it, then you understand why Bitcoin is unique in its technology and how the protocol functions, and how everything else is basically screwed up, and they're just trying to mint money. Okay, so let's talk about Summer of Bitcoin. So then, you apply to this internship program. Tell us about the process, and specifically what project did you end up working on?
So the application process of Summer of Bitcoin in the 2021, which was basically the pilot year of Summer of Bitcoin, my application process consisted of three stages. The first one was the technical round, in which a question was asked. We were given some time, 2 days time. So basically the question was, we have to fill a block with maximum number of transactions. And when I kind of understand the problem, it was basically a version of knapsack problem. Now we were given some time, a 2 days time, to explore the problem and to solve it and give an answer as best answer as we can. So after the first round, technical round, it was followed by the issue finding round, in which we have to find the issue in the Bitcoin Core repository and see if we can find a solution to that, or at least can find a way to approach the problem that like issue. The third one was the interview round, in which we were interviewed both on the technical level, like our basic knowledge of the fundamentals of Bitcoin, for example, SegWit or say anything, the fundamental knowledge of Bitcoin, as well as we were interviewed on the, say, like on the non-technical level as well. Like, are we ready for this kind of thing where we are gonna invest time on this experiment technology and stuff. So after these 3 rounds, I performed good satisfactorily in all these 3 rounds. Thank God. And so finally, I was selected for the Summer of Bitcoin program. Then during the Summer of Bitcoin program, we were first given a crash course on what Bitcoin is. Again, this to get our basics so that all the participants can get back on the same footing, and then can they start with their project. So it was a how many days? It was 8 day crash course, a 1 week crash course, in which we with Callie Rosenbaum, who is the writer of Growing Bitcoin. Not able to hear. Really? Hello? Adi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay, probably he might have some issue
Yeah.
with his audio. So, so in my the first week of the summer of Bitcoin, we were given a crash course by Kelly, in which we were our basics of Bitcoin, like on the not on the more technical level, but more on basic level, like why things work, the way things work, and we are given that crash course. It was followed by finally choosing our project. So I chose Bitcoin Core GUI, which is Bitcoin Core's graphical user interface. And Bitcoin Core, as most of you might be knowing, is the reference implementation for Bitcoin protocol. Now, why I chose this project was because I was always interested, first of all, with the design aspect of the things. I always like how the things are placed on the screen so that it attracts me. It makes it intuitive for me to play with it, to work with it, and how like a bad design could make us a best technology, a best site in the world look like just bad, and a good design could make even an average product look awesome. This like how this thing actually happens on the ground level I wanted to explore, and that's why I applied for the graphical user interface project of Bitcoin Core. Then I was assigned Harold as the mentor, and I would like to thank him for the whole journey. I was like asking him small questions, small doubt, and he always patiently gave me answer to them, and he brought me to place like not knowing anything about Bitcoin Core to actually be able to working on Bitcoin Core. So he and especially Jonas, those guys, like they were like very much involved in my whole process of getting me to the place where I'm currently sitting on. Also, I should, like, before I forgot, just in case, I was thinking of to mention it in the last, just in case I don't forget that. Thank you very much, Adi, to you as well. So that because of the summer of Bitcoin, you're starting summer of Bitcoin, so that I could be able, like, this giving me this platform so that I could do what I wanted to do. So thanks for that. Now, let me continue. Where was I? So yes. So now so Harold helped me with the from onboarding from Bitcoin Core to finally moving to the project part. So my project part consisted of two main aspects. The minor one was to implement some basic feature on the Bitcoin Core GUI, which were like quite minor at that time. And the major part of the project was to be involved with the review process. So I like I want to mention in a very brief that why review matters for a say environment like for a technology like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a technology that works on reviews. No one can push their idea in the Bitcoin, whether they be just a small changes, adding a close button to an app, or a big change like adding some level of protocol change. Nobody can push their idea without having cross reviews and cross checks on it. So so probably Bitcoin is one of the only system in the whole world, only kind of technological system in the world where review is as valuable as adding new features. So my main part of the project was helping in that review process. Now, during my internship, I did almost like 52 reviews. Almost, I don't remember correctly the number, but they were majorly focused on the PRs that have more value on the Bitcoin Core GUI at that time, and help them being able to get them merged. So during my internship, I got my PRs as well as those PRs be able to get merged, and that's pretty much summarized my 2 months of internship.
Awesome. Um, so now that you basically went through the internship program and you were fascinated by the technology, tell us about the other aspects of Bitcoin that got to you later, much later, after probably after your internship experience, and what is it about those aspects that make you feel a lot more bullish on Bitcoin's impact to society?
So one of the major incident I want to describe is the one that I was mentioning, the orange pig movement, the where I realized how big this thing actually is. So this happened recently when I went to the Bitcoin conference. So in that I was able to meet lot of Bitcoiners, the pure Bitcoiners, which I was not able to meet for like say since I started with the Bitcoin. So at that time, I let my curiosity flow out. I let all my skepticism about Bitcoin out because first of all the Bitcoiners were not there to question my allegiance with the technology. but they were sitting there. They were there to help me understand what this actually is. So when I saw that this environment, this group is there is sitting there not to say judge me, but to help me understand. I let all my skepticism out, all the things that were troubling me for a lot of time, for a long time, and then finally each question, each minute to minute question, each intricate question that I could form in my head, I got a satisfactory answer for all of them. And like like this is my approach of approaching different thing in life. When I question it, when like if I want to see if the thing works, anything, say Bitcoin or an idea or anything, any philosophical point, anything, if I can question it to the point that I can question it, like all the points that I can think of, and it doesn't break, it's right. Like question basically prove by contradiction. I question it by in any way possible, and if it stands, all the questioning, it's basically truth. Maybe my reasoning is limited. That could be possible, but I'm ready to take that blow. But for now, I can say that whatever that I can't break by my series of question is truth. And then I realized that probably Bitcoin is truth because it stand all the levels of question that I could form. And that was my orange pill moment. And the most of the question that were focused were the protocol part, that how it's implemented, how it's able to enforce that all the people are being honest in the system, how this technology, Bitcoin, as a technology is able to is much better than say fiat currency, in which you can't be, say, the points Adi mentioned, that all the inheritance problem, and all the problem in which you can't take your money outside your system, and you are like it can be censored. All these points are not as significant in the country and in the time we are living currently in, like especially in today's India, or even say any first world country which we get the news of mostly. But if we just look into the like other side of the world, say small countries like Venezuela, mm, Argentina probably as well, Brazil, like where the inflation rate is not as stable as probably India or say America, then what happens is that they just lose their money like this. And also they can't be sure of that whatever they are doing, they are working for, is going to hold its value tomorrow. And it's such a big trouble on their mind, such a big trouble that when I realized that maybe the point, the inheritance point, sorry, not the partition point you mentioned, even my family comes from the other side of the border. So when during the partition they had to leave all of their property, all of their everything, and come and start from the scratch. So it was like hitting home when you were talking about that. So so after that, like so when I got all my skepticism answered, I know that it's something I should like it's something to worth working upon.
Let's take a quick break and hear about today's sponsor. Hey everyone, this is Adi. When I was starting in the Bitcoin industry a few years ago, there were hardly any resources to learn from. It was especially hard to find other like minded Bitcoin developers and discuss about building apps on the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, things have changed, and I'm so excited to share with you about the Build on L2 initiative. Build on L2 is a community led effort by contributors and companies building on Core Lightning and the Liquid network. It's a space to connect with Bitcoin builders, product managers, designers, and developers through events and mentorship programs and learn from experts building the future of Bitcoin. It's exactly what I wish I had when I was starting out in Bitcoin. Go to buildonl2.com to join the community and learn how to build killer apps on Bitcoin. Back to the show.
Sweet. Okay. So, tell us about basically your experience after the internship. Like, you probably completed your university, and what did you end up with regards to your work on Bitcoin?
So after my internship, I continued my review and work process with Bitcoin with Bitcoin Core GUI, as I was doing before during the internship, and I continued my work with the purpose of that I want to work on it full time. So to build up my both my proof of work as well as keep contributing on this great technology that I was at the time curious with. So I continued my work during my during my whole fourth year, and after that I applied for a grant process by GEM by it was at the time was the grant was given by Gemini. Then it was the Super Luna company formed. So at the time I applied for a grant by from Gemini, and my mentor, who was already funded by Gemini, and also Jonas as well. They helped me get some some help with the Gemini team and get me able to get funded full time on this. And now currently I'm working on. So there is basically at the time was Bitcoin Core GUI, which was implemented using Qt widgets. So the Qt widget framework is usually focused on desktop development, as much as it's not as flexible, and it's not as it's not suitable for the modern way of designing. And the mobile development focus is quite limited in the Qt widget. Currently, me, Harold, another three team of three designers and developers, the 4 or 5 people, are currently working on Bitcoin Core GUI QML, which is the new implementation of Bitcoin Core's graphical user interface using the QML framework. So that framework is more focused on mobile development, which is the most common most common computer device present on the planet Earth. So, and also it's more in line with the way the designing happens like currently happens. So it's easier, it's less hacky to per se to form great designs using QML. So currently we are working on that.
All right. Um, I think a lot of people are not aware of how the grant process works because it's sort of new to them, right? Most people in universities, most students, they think of like either having a job in some company or maybe starting their own company. Tell us a little bit more about being an open source developer and working or subsisting on grants.
Yes. So the major difference between a job way of doing things and a grant way of doing this is that in job you first get the commitment that you would be paid for the next some time. Then you are trained in their particular technology, and then you finally to start working with them. So basically you are first paid, then you work. It's completely opposite with the grant. With grant, you have to first form a proof of work in the way that you are already working on this and you know what you are doing. All the training is done by yourself. And finally, when the whole ecosystem is seeing enough potential in your work, that they are seeing that this work should be done as a full-time thing, we can finally approach some kind of say grant the company that organizes grant program like Gemini, Brink, and there is one more like a big one. I'm forgetting its name. So these companies we can apply in them, and then they would see the work that we have done currently right till now, and they would see that it holds potential to be continually done in the manner it's done, and then we can get the finally this process done. So the main core difference is that you have to first commit your hours before you can get before you be able to get money for it. Completely opposite from Java. So there's a main difference between them. How the process happens, the technical part of it happens. It's like as you get more familiar with the system, as you get more into the system, you meet more people around you, say a good people who are already in the system. Then the finally the process of applying for the grant becomes quite simpler once you are already in the ecosystem. But the first you have to but the most major thing with the grant is that you have to first change the idea of how it would work. So first we have to work for free, putting our hours, not knowing when we'll be able to get funded, and then we can finally say that now we are ready to get paid for what we are doing.
There's also another difference in the basis of like in terms of the style of work that you get to do and
Yes.
the independence, the level of independence that you enjoy. Do you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah, sure. I forgot about that point. So the major difference again with job and the grant is that so in the job field you are paid to do work on say specific project or specific kind of thing that you have to work upon. So there is a proper hierarchy in the job where you are probably say when you start you are probably a developer, junior developer, and there is a manager on top of you, and there is a proper hierarchy of the system, and the order trickles down from top to bottom, and you have to do what you're told to do. Basically, uh, like in army, for example, I just got thought of a random example. Like you have to do what you're told to do. You can't think about it. You can, but not much. In the grant system, it depends first of all on the contract, the way the contract is formed. But usually the way the Bitcoin's grant process contract are formed, it's clearly mentioned on the contract that you can work on whatever the way you want to work, such that it benefits the Bitcoin ecosystem, and you are being paid for doing that. So now you have whole, like, sky is open to you. Like the sky is the limit at that time when you can do anything you want to do. It could be, for say, probably you are doing education in Bitcoin uh, ecosystem. So now you can say you're using a skill of your your teaching skills, your, say, coding skill, your way to teach people. You're using that. Your speaking skill. You're using that to benefit the ecosystem. Now you want to work on a specific, say, technology, say Bitcoin Core itself. Now you want to work on protocol. So you can go in depth about what Bitcoin is about, and you can actually make some significant change on the core, like pure core of Bitcoin. Like the sky is the limit. Basically, I'm just thinking of some random example at this point, but you can do anything at this point. So the level of freedom that Grant brings is just exceptional, and it's incomparable to, say, job.
Awesome. So, what other, Bitcoin developments are you excited about that are basically maybe in the roadmap, or well, there is no such roadmap in Bitcoin, but maybe there are developments on the horizon that you're excited about that you
So
want to
one
share?
of the major one is the one I'm working on, as usual. Like, obviously. So basically, this particular thing that we are working on now, it has like, as I talked about earlier as well in one of the presentation, this project has a potential of changing the way Bitcoin is used currently in the world, for the simple reason being that, because the app that we are creating would allow people to run their own nodes on, say, on even a mobile device as well, using just a space of around, say, 2 or 3 GB at max, which is like a normal amount of space today, like freely available on mobile device. So this would allow people to run their own nodes on their mobile phone. They would not need a separate hardware to run, or have to run a SPV client, basically a light wallet, which doesn't have ability to verify for themselves if the transaction are actually involved. Like, in very simple terms, light wallet are things that you have to trust upon a third party to verify for you that whatever you are seeing, or that the whatever transaction you want to verify is it in the block. Running your own node is equivalent to verify the whole chain and actually see, but not for some work, to actually see where, how the what was I saying? I forgot the line of thought.
You're talking about
The
the
light wallet
light
and
wallets
the
and
node.
full nodes. Yeah.
So the full node gives you the ability to identify, to verify for yourself if the transaction is actually in the block or not. So with line in with the Bitcoin philosophy, like, it's very much encouraged, like almost all of the time, as much as possible, to run your own node. So if people can run their own node on their mobile phone without any separate hardware, it would become a streamlined process to run their own node, and the light wallets part of the trust can be removed finally from the system. So now, and also, because this app would be like, the application would be very lightweight, it could be easily, like, it's not heavy on the application side. The data would be more, the 2 GB data of the the total block data would be high in the quantity, but the app would be very easy to run on any kind of smartphone. So that's why it can change the way the Bitcoin is used currently in the system, and it's also very nicely designed. So you should check it out.
Okay. Um, so let's move to the last segment of the podcast. Um, Love to hear from you. How should one go about understanding Bitcoin? Like if they are a beginner, even before becoming interested in the developing side of things, how should one approach Bitcoin? Maybe you want to chat about uh, how do you do how do you convince your friends or family, or what sort of conversations come up when you talk about Bitcoin? What advice do you give to those people?
So first of all, if, just in case, say, even you, all of the people who are sitting in the call would have some kind of development experience, right? Even if your friends, or even if your family member who don't have any development experience, all of you guys start first of all with, if you're interested in the technology, first start with what actually Bitcoin is and why it is different. So the thing that I got to understand very late in my journey, like very recently, I would, like, if I can go back in time, I would first understand that part of my, like, that part, like why, and then I can start with how. So first you have to understand the why Bitcoin. So one book that I could recommend, like easily recommend, is the Bitcoin Standard. So that book focuses on the theoretical aspect of, no, not theoretical in the technical way, theoretical aspect in the sense that economics of the Bitcoin and why Bitcoin works. So it's the major focus of the book. First, like you can read that book, go through that book, and and hopefully if the book kind of orange pill you, which it will, I'm sure of it. So if it can orange pill you and make you understand why Bitcoin is general, it is really important. You can then move on with say a technical book that can like a simpler technical book like Programming Bitcoin by Jimmy Song or Mastering Bitcoin, which through them you can understand the technical aspects of Bitcoin, like how what is it and how it works. And and after completing the book, say Programming Bitcoin, Mastering Bitcoin, you can directly jump onto any code base, Bitcoin related code base. So after jumping in the code base, you might have problem. You might have some trouble understanding the code base of the project, but now because the fundamentals are clear, you would be able to easily grasp on what things are present in the what how the code functions basically. So that this is basically the roadmap I would suggest anybody who is interested in the project. First, get the why done and how done, and then what. Oh, I just quoted a very famous book by coincidence. Start with why, what, why, how, what.
Okay. Um, you've been an open source developer for, I think, about a year now.
Yes.
Um, do you have any advice for people who are looking into getting started with open source development?
So first, like I would the first advice is the first warning that I also want to give you with open source. Open source is lonely, very, very lonely. It could be very, very lonely. So you have to first be mentally prepared that you are the only person who is going to keep a check on you that what you are working on. So to minimize this effect of loneliness, I would recommend that whatever project you work on, join their meetings. Probably the meeting might be happening bi-monthly or every week. So join their meetings, discuss what's going on with the project, so that you can keep whatever you're doing with check of what the others are expecting from you as well as from themselves. All of you can keep a check on and bounce around ideas with each other. But that also is limited in its capacity. The main thing you have to understand with open source development is first of all is that you have to get you have to be a manager of yourself. You have to understand why you are working on and keep motivating yourself to keep working on that. If you say uh, if you say you did less work on a weekday, you will gonna make sure yourself that you're gonna cover up for that in the weekends probably. So with open source development there are no weekdays and weekends, but that can be a boon as well as a bane. In which first in the first one, say in a job world where you have to work 5 days a week and you can take a 2-day holiday, which is enforced on you by a third party, by a third party institute. If that's enforced on you, you that also can work because we humans are a creature of habits. But if you're gonna have the freedom of making your own work day, however you want to make it look like, you have to also be responsible for you are gonna make that look good, basically. So that's one of the say caveat, one of the warnings I wanted to give you upon the open source. But again, I started with warning because they are limited. Now the good thing is that you are free. And what do you want more than that? So the freedom that open source gives you, and as well as the capacity to work on the things you want to work on is enormous with open source. So that's the best part of open source. So come and join us in the open source world.
All right. Let's move to advice for some of Bitcoin applicants, right? What tips would you share for someone who wants to participate and apply in Summer of Bitcoin?
So I would again share the same tips that I just suggested any beginner who want to get used to what Bitcoin is. Again, before applying to Summer of Bitcoin, understand why you're applying to it. If for say the reason for applying is that probably stipend or the perks you're going to get, like it's good. If you're aware of the fact that why you're applying to is why are you the reason you're applying to it is, then it's good, even if there could be a monetary reason only. But the best thing that but if you're not aware of the fact, say if you are blinding yourself that I'm interested with this thing and actually you're just applying for the say perks, then it would be tough for you in the like later in the journey, because then your actual interest and your the theoretical interest would not align, and that would create just dissonance in your head. So just be super aware of why you are applying in this process, and to be aware you have to first be knowledgeable. So again, before being knowledgeable you have to understand why. Start with the theoretical aspect, if you really get the interest in the Bitcoin technology, you can move on to understand the technical sides of it. And I'm sure that if you complete, like, say, these two books, if not even these two books, if you just understand the core of these two books through, say, summary, or through, say, some kind of lectures, probably there are many lectures available on the internet as well. If you get familiar with what these two books are about, the why book and the how book, then I'm sure that you can easily form a good proposal with, say, with some help, in the sense that you have to clearly be able to write what you want to say. Like I have seen a lot of time, people have great ideas to share, but they don't know how to say it. And that's just sad. Like, that's not even like brutally sad, because you have a world to say, you have a world of things to say, and you can't. Oh my god. So you have to learn as well to how to write, how to share your ideas. And once you learn that, you have things to share about, and you know how to share them. That's pretty much it. You can do anything about with these skills. Now you can write a great proposal, and I'm sure if you have your theoreticals clear, and as well as the writing part clear, you can easily get the summer of Bitcoin intern. Right, Ati? Am I right?
No, that's fantastically put. Thank you so much. I think that's a good note to wrap up on. Shashwat, thank you again
Thank you
for
very much
joining
to you
us
too
and
for
sharing your
inviting
experience.
me. And also, let me also again add that I might have forgotten in the end. I would like to thank Harold, Jonas, Carolee, and you, and all the people involved with the summer of Bitcoin from the time I came with this and till now, who gave me the stage, who made me who I am right now. From a person interested in the technology, interested in this black box of Bitcoin, to finally be able to understand its great scale and be able to work on it. So thank you very much to you too.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Summer of Bitcoin experience. I would love to get your thoughts on what else would you like to hear from these student developers, and how to make this the most valuable podcast for getting started with Bitcoin open source development. Write to us at hello@summerofbitcoin.org. Can you do us a small favor? Go online and share this episode with at least one friend who you think would benefit from this episode. Until next time.